Hi, this is Steve Mulberry with GISinc, and in the last recording I did, I kind of walked through the steps on how to set up the coronavirus response solution provided by Esri. And you can see on the screen here, this was the outcome and the result. I've appended a new geography to this particular map, but we've been getting some questions on, how do I add new fields to the survey? And if you remember, the survey looked like this. And I'm going to bring over. I like to test these things out on my phone as well. So this is what their survey report looks like on my phone, and I can click on one of these buttons, pick one of those geographies, and kind of work through that process. But what if I want to add a couple new fields down the bottom? Maybe I want to add new cases or total cases or hospitals or at home or hotel or age groups or whatever I want to add. How do I add new fields to this survey form and get that data back into the response solution so that I can start displaying that within the dashboard? So I'm going to walk you through those steps right now. Okay, so let's first kind of review what we're going to do here. So this whole process is going to illustrate how to add new fields to the survey, which in turn will add new fields to the feature layers that we'll publish that will help support the dashboard and the survey. So basically, this is definitely a process, so take your time and know that there is several steps here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to edit our cases hosted feature layer. I'm going to add the new fields that we're going to collect information for. Then we're going to go into the survey and add those same new fields, the definitions and configurations for the survey. And once those two things are lined up, we need to reset the view definitions on a couple of views, and I'll talk through that. And then we have to rebuild one of those views, the cases underscore current view. It's a view used. It was a view that was created from a join process, and so we have to rebuild that one. Then we're going to use ArcGIS Online Assistant to reset the URL to the layer inside the web map that supports the dashboard. Then we're going to go into that web map and reconfigure some of the attributes, the pop-ups, and the configurations in there. And then we're going to go into the dashboard. We're actually going to make a copy of the dashboard, and then we'll go in and reconfigure our new one because things will be broken, and we'll have to kind of update that. So there are 7 steps here. Bear with me, just take them one at a time, and we'll work through this. Okay, so that first step, we're going to go into the cases hosted feature layer and add the fields that are going to be used to support my survey. So we go into the cases feature layer, we go into the hosted feature layer, we go into the data side, and we go into the actual table itself, and I'm going to hit fields, and this is where I'm going to add that new field. And now it's important to keep track of what we do here because we're going to translate what we do here over to the survey. So, and you might add all kinds of fields. You might add like new cases or total cases or age ranges or hospitalized, at home, hotel, whatever you want to put in here. This is where you define that. So I'm going to call this one new cases, and I'm going to give it an alias here, and I'm going to set this as an integer field type, and I'm going to add that new field here. So I'm only going to do one for this process, but you could add as many as you want in here. So I got this new field called, the field name itself is new cases. So we got to make sure we do this exact same thing in survey, and there's the alias. Okay, so then we go back to content, and then we find our survey form, and it's called Case Reporter, and you should be familiar with editing this from the last recording. And we're going to open this back up in our Connect application and make a couple changes here. All right, this should be familiar. We're logging in. Make sure you're logged in. Make sure you download that report or that form, the survey, and this should already have our initial changes in there from when we added all the geographies. And now we want to add a couple new fields down here. So I'm going to open up the spreadsheet and make those changes inside the spreadsheet. So here under the choices where we did our choices last time, but we're going to go actually to the survey and we're going to add in our new new field. So first thing I need to do is define the type here, and we're going to do this twice. Then I want to give the name the same name that I used when I updated the actual feature layer. I can give it an alias or a label for the survey. If I want to, I can put a hint here. So I'm just going to copy this and move it down, and then expand that down a little bit. And this is replace this with new cases, so that I got a hint there. And then the last thing I want to do is, although I set the type here, when we bring this over and it establish its connection with the feature service, I got to also say this is also an Esri integer type. So let's review. We've got the integer type here. We've got our label for the form. We got our field name, and we got our type of data that we're collecting in the form itself. Is it integer? So those two match up here. And we hit save. Now, before I exit out here, there's one more very important thing you got to do. Under settings, in the submission URL, right? This value right here. It's very important that we update this item ID with the same item ID as the case hosted feature layer. So I'm going to go back into my content, go to my cases hosted feature layer, and I'm going to grab that unique ID right up here. So I'm going to grab that unique ID all the way to the equal sign. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to bring that back into my survey form. I'm going to make sure that that is, and then paste that in there, make sure that's updated. Okay, that's very important. So then, because when I publish a survey, it's got to be able to point to the right hosted feature layer that this information is going to go to, and that's the item that it's going to. So I'm going to hit save. I'm going to close out. Now, when I close out, make sure that the Survey Connect does a refresh for you. If it doesn't, make sure you hit that button right there. And now let's still validate. I got my two geographies. That works fine, and I should have a new field down here called new case with a hint. Total new cases as of date reported. Perfect. So now I'm going to hit publish. Now, if you get this far, great, it worked. But if you get an error message saying submission URL was invalid or field wasn't the same, then your fields have a conflict. Make sure both your field definitions are the same in the hosted feature layer, the cases hosted feature layer, and also in the survey. But this tells me that both fields were correct. So now I can hit publish survey. It goes through its checks. When it's done, it'll let me know that everything published okay. I can hit okay, and now I can actually close down the Survey Connect. Okay, so now the next step is I got to start rebuilding and redefining the definitions for these views. And remember, there's three views that we need to work with. We need to work with the case reporter, the cases public, and the cases current. And the cases reporter and public are pretty straightforward. So what we do is we open that up inside of a map viewer. So I'm just going to open that up in a new tab here. And so once it opens, it shows us the case reporter, right, the polygon area, but also the table. And this is where we want to make our definition updates. So we're going to activate that table. We're going to highlight the additional properties and parameters here. We're going to say set view definition on the fields. That opens up a box, and we should see our new field down here. We want to make sure that we include that in the new definition. Hit apply, and that's done. And I can just close it right. I don't have to save. I don't do anything else. Just close it out. Go back to my content page and do the same thing for the cases public. So open that up, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go to the cases public properties, hit set view definition on the fields, scroll down until I see my new cases, hit apply, and then exit out. And that will update those two views with the information from the new fields from the survey and from the new field we added in the cases hosted feature layer. Okay, this next step is a little more complicated, so we're going to take this slowly. Now I need to update and actually rebuild the case's current hosted feature. And this is one that's built off of the join. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just rebuild it. And so I'm going to actually delete this and start over. So and there might be other ways to do this, but this is how I found it to kind of work best for me. So I'm just going to highlight that, hit delete, and I'm going to delete that one item. And then I'm going to rebuild it. Now, the way you rebuild it is you just start a new map. And inside my new map, I'm going to add the cases hosted feature layer. So scroll down till we find cases. Right here it is. This is the default hosted feature layer. This is what drives all the views. So once I have that loaded, go to my content. We can see we have the cases, a reporting area, and the cases table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my analysis tools and go over here to summarize. I'm going to use the join feature. Now, just keep in mind that this does eat up credits. I think it's 5 credits every time you do this. So that's not much, but just keep in mind there. So I'm going to hit join, and this is the way you got to do it. So we're going to do, our target is going to be our cases area, the reporting area, and we're going to join that to the table. We're going to use fields to match. We're going to use the name field in both those tables to do the join. And we're going to do a one-to-many, all right? Because there's one reporting area for many records in the cases table. And then here I'm going to give it a name, and I got to call it the same thing. So I'm going to call it cases underscore current with a lowercase c. That's how it was before. Keep it in the same folder. Now this last step is the most important part here. So you want to make sure you create results as a hosted feature layer view, not as a new hosted feature layer. You want to make sure it's a view, so anything new gets added through the survey, it gets reflected in here. And then we're going to run the analysis. Now this does take a few minutes, and remember, it does take about 5 credits to build this. Okay, so that finished, and now we can see we have this new cases current view, and in that view I should see the 2 records that I've added initially in there, and now I have the new field, new cases. So the next time I start adding data or updating information, I now will see that information here for new cases. Okay, so we're making our way down the list here. We're almost there. So I'm going to go back to my content folder, and now the next step is to reassign the URL to the active cases layer that is used within the web map that supports my dashboard. So there's this web map called Community Impact Dashboard, and if I open that up, there's a layer in there called active cases, which points to the new cases current hosted feature layer view, and make sure that says view there. If it doesn't say view, then you got to redo that last step. So the way to do that is if you come out here to a URL and you type in ArcGIS Online Assistant, you just go right to the first link there, hit ArcGIS Online Assistant. It'll ask you to log into ArcGIS Online, and because you're already logged in, it'll just ask you to say, hey, you want to log in with this user? Allow that user, yes. I want to do that. Now, this is a really neat tool. If you're not familiar with this, you might want to take some time to get familiar with the things you can do here. But you can see it shows me all my folders. Here's my coronavirus folder and all the information in here. And with these items in here, I can do things like I want to copy content or view the items JSON or update a URL's service in a web map. And when I click that, you'll see it highlight all the web maps for me. And there's my community impact dashboard. So I'm going to highlight that. So here is that services URL that pointing to the active cases, which is the name of it's active cases in the web map, but it's actually pointing to cases current. And now this ID is wrong, right? This is the old one. So I'm going to come back to my content, find my cases current, click that, open it up, and then on the details page here, if you scroll down to the bottom right, this is the URL that you want to grab. So I'm going to copy that URL, come into my assistant, and replace it all the way. Well, just do replace all, but make sure you hit a /0 at the end, right? You want that 0 layer, that first layer within that service. That'll give us the new identity for that. Hit update and make sure that it says success there, and then you can just actually close that browser down. Okay, we're getting close, almost there. So now let's go back to my content, and let's open up that web map that we just updated. So here's that Community Impact Dashboard Web Map. Let's open that up in a new window here, a new tab. And let's do a couple things. Let's make sure we're getting that new field, right? So we can see that new field. Let's make sure we update the configuration for the attributes within the pop-up window and things like that. For instance, if I click on one of these points, right, we may want to add in there that, new cases right here. So we want to update that as well. So we're going to open up that new layer, go to the properties. We're going to say configure pop-up. And a couple things we want to do. We want to go into configure attributes. We want to make sure that that new layer is in here. There's new cases, so we're going to turn that on, and we'll hit OK. And next, we will come in here to configure, and we will add in here the new cases. So we'll say new cases item here, so that when you do the pop-up, they can see that, and we'll just give it the name of the field. Close that up, curly brackets, and now we've got the new item there, and we can hit OK, and now I can save this out. And so next time when I add information there, you'll see new cases pop up there. There's no information there now, but there. And actually, if we come back here, let's close this out. If we come back here and go to our cases, this is kind of help us connect the dots and make sure everything's working. Our root cases hosted feature layer, this is where everything's driven from. Go to the data tab. Let's update the previous records that were in there. So let's go to cases. Let's put zeros in here because we just didn't have anything yet. So we'll put 0 there and 0 there. And then we'll go back to our content. We'll open that web map. We'll check the pop-up just to make sure everything is working. All right, so that loads up. Click on the identify button, and now we can see 0 there. So this is letting me know that everything's starting to come together, right? It's starting to play out. And the last thing we got to do is now just configure our dashboard. So what we're going to do is close the web map out and come in here and configure our dashboard. Now this is what it looked like before. What I want to do is I want to go into the actual dashboard opening screen here, the management page, and I want to edit the existing community impact dashboard. So I'm going to open that up, and you'll notice it starts to load. These things just start to spin, okay, because things are broken in there now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit save as. I don't want to mess with this one. I'm going to call this save as. We'll call this dashboard, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it version 2, and I'll hit save. And now with this one now in edit mode, so now I'm editing version 2. I'm going to delete these because they'll just spin forever. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to hit delete. Because even if you tried to open them up, right, watch it. If I hit configure, it'll just sit here and spin, and I don't want to wait for that. So I'm just going to hit delete. It's faster for me just to configure these. So I'll just hit delete on all these ones that are spinning. The other ones are using other data sources that we haven't messed with yet. So we'll leave those alone. And I'm going to show you how to update one, and then it'll be the same process for all the other ones. So basically what we're going to do is we want to keep the same sort of formatting of how this thing plays out. You can already see that these underlining elements, right, these line charts here already picked up the data. So that these things still work. It was just the top indicators. So I'm just going to grab this indicator right here, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to start configuring this one. So we'll go in here, we'll hit configure, and this is my active cases one. So I'm going to remove, I'm actually going to change first the database. So now we're going to point to this new active cases, and I'm going to say summarize on active. You start to see things pop in here, and then I'm going to leave everything the same here, other than if I want to change the icon, I can. And you can pick any icon that you want, but if you want to keep the same icons that Esri had on there to begin with, you might want to take a screenshot of your dashboard before you start deleting those elements. But I'll just go through here. This first one was active cases, so I'll find something that I want to use. We'll just use this one right here. And then I want to go to general and make sure I name this something like indicator active cases, and edit the title. And that should come up there, and we'll just do active cases, and we'll hit good. And this is important because this will come in later when we update the action item. So with active cases item there, and now I can just take and drag this and put it on top of the existing one there, and we can see we got history, but I want my active cases to be first. So we'll drag it over to the left, and then I'll highlight it, I hit the pencil, and we'll change the name to active cases and hit enter. So now I've just updated my first chart here. Now I can do is I can duplicate this 1, 2, 3, 4 more times and just change the icon and just change the field that it's pumping information from, and change the name there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And actually, I'll do it one more time for you, and then I'll pause and I'll do the rest of them. So we'll hit duplicate. And this one is my confirmed cases. So we'll hit configure, leave everything the same here, but just go to confirmed. And now I'll go to indicator. If I want to change this icon, I think this icon was something like this right here. Go to general. Remember, I set the name. There we go. And then everything looks good. Hit done. Whoops, I forgot to change the name there. So let's go back. I should have hit that. Under general, hit edit. Change that to confirmed. Hit done. And now drag that on top of the confirmed element there, and then again drag it to the left, activate it, edit, confirmed. Okay, so now you can kind of see how we're going here, and if I want to make that all the same, let's just go confirmed or active instead of putting all those names out there. So now it's just a matter of going through each one of these one at a time and updating that. So I'm going to do that here real quick. Okay, so you can see now that I've updated all of my indicator elements with the latest information. So now they're all tied up and linked up here. So now there's kind of two things left I want to do. So one, I want to add a new element that shows me my new cases, and then I got to tie that to this pick list. So this, you can see this pick list up here says no data. This needs to be reconfigured as well. So let's first add my new cases, that new field. So I'm going to just take my active cases area, and I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to go through the same process, and this time I'm going to grab my new cases, and I'm going to change everything in here like I did before. I'll leave that, the icon the same. We'll do indicator, new cases. There we go, and hit OK. And then move that and put that also on top. And I'm going to move that right next to active. And we'll say new. So now I've got my new, my active, and my history. And right now there's 0 because there's nothing in the tables there. But before I kind of start adding data and make sure that works, I need to update my category selector. So first thing I'm going to do is just remove this altogether. So hit delete, and then come over here and say I'm going to add a new category selector. So the first thing I'm going to do under my categories from, I'm going to hit group, and it's going to ask me where I want to grab that information from. There's my active cases, and I'm going to do new cases. I'm going to do name field here, because I'm going to have my list of reporting areas. And there's some parameters here I'm going to set. I'm just going to come down here to a none option, and I'm going to put all. So I'm going to gather one reporting area or all reporting areas. And make sure I, again, set this. I'm going to say cat selector. Let's call this reporting area. Okay, now the next thing here is to establish the action between this drop-down list and the other layers. But first, let me just hit done and make sure this comes up, and I see all, and I can see my values there. Now nothing's working yet. I got to tie the actions there. So we just go back into the configuration, go to actions, and I want to just start setting up. So first off, I don't need to do some of these like schools and facilities. I don't need to tie in, but I do need to do confirmed history, and I want to make sure that it's a name field. I want to do recovered history. So some of these you have to tie in directly, and some of them you don't, and I'll show you. We'll do all the history ones. You got to make sure you pick the right field that you want to sort on and filter by. But the indicators are already set. So things like not colleges right here. So we've got our active cases, we've got our confirmed cases, we've got our death cases, and recovery, and just so on and so forth. So I'm just going to grab each one of these tasks and definitely my new cases. So we've got all those indicators tied together. And I can hit done, I hit save, and now I can, as I click between my reporting areas, that information will update for me all the way around, and we can see, well, not yet, we'll add some data in there, but now all this information is tied together very nicely. Okay, so the last step here is just to get to my form. So I've got my cell phone over here, and I'm going to run through the form. So the first thing I want to make sure I do is I download the latest and greatest survey, all those changes, right? So I synchronize that. So I click the synchronize button. It's going to download that. Everything's good. Now I can open up the survey, and I can start collecting information. So we'll select something for a new record, right? Maybe I'll do yesterday, or I'll do tomorrow. And then we'll say, just fill out the forms real quick. Let's go 25, let's go confirm 12, recovered 7, death 0. That the last field will populate. And there's my new cases. Let's say 6 are new. Check off, send now. And that is updated. And if I come back to my dashboard and hit refresh, we should now see inside of my new tab there that I got now the 6 new features that I just, the value that I just added in from the survey. So we've gone through that that whole process. So let's just do a real quick recap. So we edited our cases feature layer by adding the new fields in. We opened up the survey form, and we added the same information for the survey for those new fields. We redefined the view definitions for those simple ones, right? The case reporter and case public. Then we had to rebuild that case's current view by deleting the existing one, rebuilding the new one by doing the join, following those steps in there. Then we reset the URL within the web map using the ArcGIS Online Assistant. Then we went back into the web map that supports the dashboard and configure those attributes at the pop-up and the configuration there. And then we went into the dashboard. We actually copied the dashboard. We deleted some of those elements in there. We reconfigured it and tied it into the new pieces of information. So there you go. I hope you find this useful, and have a good day.